We have been through wars, earthquakes, coup d'etat, floods, monsoons, not monsoons, hurricanes, everything. We have done everything. And as part of the reality of our current state of affairs in Latin America is how to mobilize young leaders. And more than a model, I don't have a model to present. I have questions to wrestle with. And I wish that many of you that maybe have already wrestled with these questions would help us to provide answers. We are working with high-level influencers in many countries, and Rolando, Pablo, Rudy with military, they're doing a great job of reaching some of the top people in the military, in political world, in the business world, and they're doing a great job, and I am glad that we have them. But to tell you the truth, the reality is that my friends are the exception. Most of our staff, almost 600 staff, are working mostly on campus. And so I want to go ahead and give you a little bit of facts about our ministry in LAC. We call it LAC, means Latin America and the Caribbean, 26 countries. Some LAC facts, so you have a little bit of background. 26 countries, out of them, 22 are stage 1, meaning these 22 countries are focused mostly on developing campus movements. And so most of our staff are focused on the universities. We only have 4 stage 2 countries, that is countries who are doing other things beyond the campus. So as you can see here, the majority of our ministry throughout LAC is focused on young people. 70% of our population is under 25. That's the reality of Latin America. A very young continent, very young continent. We keep having babies like there's no tomorrow. And yes, fruitful and multiply. We have campus ministry. We have presence in many more campuses, but we could say we have something that you can identify as a campus ministry in about 85 universities. These are the top universities in every country, in every major country of the continent. We graduate between 800 and 1,200 new young professionals every year, which is an incredible production every year. These numbers are approximate. There might be many more, but trying to track is not easy, and this is an approximation of how many we track every year. Can you believe every year we give to society between 800 to 1,200 bright young people who have been with us for a minimum of 3, 4, even to 5 years of college. DNA of Campus Crusade, they learned how to share their faith, they learned how to raise money for projects, they have been on international projects, they're the top of the cream of the crop from every university. Most of our staff are not really equipped to minister to high-level influencers. Not because they're dumb, it's because most of them are reaching university students. That's the reason why. And after working with young people for a long time, I think you lose a little bit of the capacity to talk to adults and high-level people. That's reality. And because we make such a strong emphasis on campus, it seems like we are causing them not to be able to reach influential leaders. So it's not their fault that they're not doing it. I have to be very careful and we have to realize that it's possibly to a great extent our fault that we're not equipping our staff to reach high-level influencers. The most natural place to start is with young graduates from our campus ministries. In other words, to start reaching young leaders, we don't have to do anything. We're just producing them every year. We don't have to go out. They're coming every year. In El Salvador, my home city, we have ministry in 4 universities, and every year, as we have been there for the last 5 years, We are now graduating an average of between 6 and 10, sometimes even more, students that have been with us for a long time. Every year. So they're there already. For instance, in Argentina, we have a database of 2,000 college graduates for the last 5 to 8 years. We know their names. To a great extent, we know their emails. We don't know exactly where they are, but through email, it's possibly we can connect them. So the potential to develop movements with young leaders who within the next 10 years, 5 to 10 years, will become, many of them will become influential leaders, is incredible. It's right there. Many of these young professionals remain connected to our campus ministries. For the first maybe 1 or 2 years of their professional life, they continue attending a lot of the things we do on campus. They come to our conferences, and they remain connected for the first 1 or 2 years because they love it. It changed their lives. They have lots of friends. Many of them met their spouses in the campus ministry, so they continue to be connected to some extent. In most places, we don't know what to do with young professionals, except to ask them to become our supporters. And the reason why we don't know what to do is because we actually don't care about them when they graduate. Not because we don't love them, it's because we're too busy doing only one thing, campus ministry. And this one thing that we're doing is not connected to any other thing that we're doing anywhere else. And so therefore, when they graduate, it's like they jump off a cliff, and they are lost forever. Except the ones who join the staff, a small minority, and except the ones who join our support teams, a slightly bigger number. But the vast majority of young professionals, we don't know where they are, with few exceptions. Young professionals. What we are finding as we interact with them throughout these years without having formal things with them except for a few things here and there, is that number one, they're interested in social and economic causes. They are becoming adults, they are growing up, and they begin to see the world from a different perspective. And so they get really interested into how can I help others? And so whenever we have developed social projects, poverty, assistance, they get involved. And so we have found that this is a great way to keep connected to them, to get them involved in projects that go beyond just the campus. Also, we have also found that these young professionals don't want to be led by staff. They need mentors and coaches. You see, in campus, the direction of the staff is very direct. The staff say, okay, tomorrow, at 8 p.m. we'll meet, and they come. But when you are becoming an adult, that type of direction is less important. You need people to come alongside you, and so the staff, some of the few staff that we have in leader-led, who have been working for years on the campus, they have a hard time connecting with professionals because it's a different way that you lead them. You don't tell them what to do. You don't treat them like children or like young students. And many times our staff cannot make the switch. And so there's no chemistry after a while. And so our staff are frustrated because the professionals don't do what they tell them. And the professionals are frustrated because no one is coaching them or mentoring them in other aspects of life. Also, the young professionals want to leave behind the student world. They love it when they were students, but now they're getting married, they're working among other adults, they're seeing the world from a bigger perspective, and they don't like too much the student world anymore. That's for young people. I'm not so young anymore. I have responsibilities. And because we make such a strong emphasis only on campus, on our ministries, everything that we do is very youth-oriented. The singing we do, all the activities we do, and maybe for the first 2 years, young professionals like that because they still have one foot on the campus, on the student world. But once they start having families, they say, well, this is too childish for me. I need other things. And so we need to create a different environment for them that is very separate from the campus and the student world to really connect with their needs in the world that they're living in. But the biggest obstacle that we're finding when we want to work with our young graduates is we need to reset their Great Commission mindset, DNA. And this is very key and very subtle, that sometimes it's so subtle we don't see it. But it's becoming clearer and clearer as we interact with them. Number one, we have taught them during their school years that the Great Commission is only about win, build, send. And all of a sudden, when they grow up, they realize there's more to the Great Commission than win, build, send. And so the very DNA that we put in their hearts while they were in school, now it becomes irrelevant to a great extent in the adult world. We also have to share that it's okay not to join staff. We put so much pressure on recruiting that people who don't join staff carry a big guilt when they are, not joining staff, because it's without us knowing. The message is the true warriors, the true heroes, the true committed people are the ones who join staff. The rest have to pay so that we get support. We never say it like that, but that's more or less how we communicate it. And so people who don't join staff, sometimes they run away from us because they're so guilty. It's like when I owe money, I don't want to see the person I owe money to, because I know he's going to, try to get the money from me. We also have to help them see work as a calling. Work is not a way to survive or a way to produce money to support the real missionaries. Work has to, we have to teach that work is a calling from God. And to be a great surgeon, it's also a calling from God. To be a great engineer is a calling from God. And God rejoices when you do a good thing in your profession, when you excel at whatever God has called you to do in your profession. We don't teach that. That's not part of our DNA during the school years. So when they become graduates, it creates a conflict of interest with them. And so that becomes an obstacle for a lifetime of ministry. We also have to teach them that faith is about the whole of life. Not just about win, build, send. Not just about reaching others. Yeah, that's the important part, but that's life. Faith is not just about reaching others. Faith is not just about winning my colleagues in my engineering department. Faith is about everything. And so the very things that we do while they're students become an obstacle when they are not students anymore. So we have to find a way to recalibrate the DNA. There's a lot of good things about the DNA that we do. I'm not saying let's discard everything. But there's some key elements of the DNA we plant in their hearts while they're students that need to be recalibrated and reset, so that this DNA becomes relevant for an adult that has kids and has multiple things at the same time happening in their lives. We also need to help them experience community. One of the complaints that we hear over and over from young professionals is the life are isolated. They have no community. They used to have a great community with Crusade when they were students, but now when they're adults, where is the community? Even those who attend churches, most churches are not really communities. They are a series of events. And so if we don't provide a community environment for our young professionals, we'll never be relevant to them. They are seeking community. And two kinds of community. One is an audience-based community where like-minded engineers can gather, or people who work for government, or teachers, or people who love sports, or lawyers. That type of community. Maybe just men or just women or young couples. You know, that's audience-based type of community where we share a lot of interest. But there's another type of community that we also have to provide, is family-based community, which in part it's what we saw yesterday here in St. Paul. The communities that we saw are family-based. They're not based in an audience. They have movements that are audience-based, but the community itself is family-based. The children and young people and older people and everybody's there. And if we don't provide that kind of environment, we will simply become irrelevant to our young professionals. So we are trying, as we are committed to develop movements among professionals, we have to add that piece to the Crusade DNA, which is, how do you develop a community of people who are not students anymore? That is not, I don't see it anywhere. So we have to create that. We have to make sure that we provide that community. And I love the term we're using now, missional communities, even though it's not totally clearly defined, but at least it's a step in the right direction, because we now realize that it's not just about having a lot of multiplying disciples that are doing things. It's about having communities of multiplying disciples who are in it together. And so I think we will need to rethink a lot of the things we do in Crusade. And traditionally, what we have done in many countries in Latin America is we send them out to churches, and good churches with good preaching. Well, even that is not enough community. They are in church and they still feel isolated, because you know, churches for the most part don't really are places of community. There are some that do it, but most of them don't do it. What are some challenges? I have less than 3 minutes now. Well, we have to challenge our campus staff to start LLM in their cities with the young graduates that we are producing every year. In reality, everything has to start from the very beginning. It has to start when they're students. If we try to switch them when they are young professionals, it will be very hard, very hard. So in reality, LLM doesn't start with LLM. Start with the campus ministry. But you know there is a big problem. Raise their hand, somebody from SLM here in this room? No one from SLM is here. You see the problem? I hate to talk about them when they're not here. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. We shouldn't do that. But the reality is that we are looking at SLM as if we are isolated, as if we are an entity in ourselves, when we're not. There should be here people from student ministry. We should have people from churches, you know, here too, because life, it's everything. We have to modify our campus ministry DNA to prepare the students for life in the real world. Campus ministry is about campus. It starts with campus and ends with campus. We have to get rid of that kind of thinking. Campus ministry is just the beginning of life for a person. Life is about life. It's about decades of family. And if we don't train our young students for that kind of thing, it will be very difficult for us at LLM try to do it, when for the last 5 years, nobody has taught them about that. Establish relationship with senior students that will continue throughout their professional lives. Sometimes we say, okay, we have a small LLM group here with young professionals. Would you transfer them to us? Well, that sounds good in theory, but in reality, working with people is about relationships. And you cannot transfer relationships. You have to establish relationships. So one of the things that we're doing in some countries is we're asking the people who work with leaders to go to the university and start interacting with senior students from the last year of university, so that by the time they graduate, we already have a relationship established. But that again requires a lot of integration. Redefine the role of the LLM staff. Challenge some of the graduates to lead the movement beyond campus. We will not have initially enough staff qualified to do LLM. But what about challenging some of the young graduates to become the leaders? They can do it. In other places, we don't need the staff yet. We also need to convince SLM staff that there is a world beyond campus. Unfortunately, many, and I have been one of them, who are so focused on campus that we forget there is other life beyond campus. So we have to help them, and we have to think integrated. We have to have them in our meetings, and we have to go to their meetings so that when we plan for the future, we're planning like a unit. Keep better track of graduating students. And the final two challenges, we have to connect and integrate all of our critical components. We cannot continue having separate planning meetings as if the others don't exist. I don't know logistically and financially how that's going to happen, but unless we start thinking all of us together, we will continue to have this problem that we are separated. And we only plan for our part. It's like we exist separately from the others. And they plan as if we don't exist separately from the others. That cannot continue. We have to find a way somehow to plan integrated. Of course, everybody works in their own trench, but we have to plan and dream together for the city. And lastly, we have to develop models of missional communities that embrace our young graduates and their families and serve them for a lifetime. And we saw some of that yesterday. We found communities here, small churches and missional communities that are serving not students, not graduates, not women, not men. They're serving the family. They're serving everybody. Only when they're students? No, they're serving them forever. One of the guys who was translating for us in the center that we attended, I asked him, how long have you been a Christian? He said, 4 years. And how did it start? Well, he said, my girlfriend was attending one of the centers. And so when I began to come to the center because, we were dating, I met the Lord and I fell in love with the Lord. Well, when they changed the leader from that center to this center, we followed him. And we're here now. And he married us. And now he's a young professional, he's a system engineer, and he is still connected. So there's no bridge, between, the bridge that we talked about. There's no bridge because the community is the common thread from where he was a student, he was single, now he's married, now he's a young professional. And next week, he said, I'm scared to death because I'm in the Leadership Academy, and next week I am giving my first lesson, multiplication, And so, seamless, transparent, there's no bridge. There is no, if I ask him, what component are you part of? Typical crusade question, what component are you? He doesn't know about components, he knows about life. Life is not made out of components, of critical components. Life is life, And so when we have missional communities that don't care about components but care about life, we can exploit, we can explode serving people throughout their life without segmenting too much. So these are some of the things that we're experiencing in Latin America. We're seeing lots of good things happen. As people catch the vision, we are beginning to see some of our older staff, senior staff, say, I want to do this. And so we predict, with Pablo, we're very excited. We have several cities on our list for next year where we're going to launch these initiatives in a more formal way. Very connected, hopefully, with SLM, the campus ministry. Thank you very much. Thank you.